Good morning, and I'm not Tom Hatch, but he's right here. Don't worry, we're not having Tom Hatch. I'm Janae Andrus. I'm the field marketing manager for SaltStack, and so we're making all these happen, and we're really excited about BlackHat. BlackHat has been fantastic. We're really enjoying it. We've had a lot of engagement from attendees. I hope you're enjoying the SaltStack booth. There's a lot of white papers to check out, a couple other videos, and there's swag, so don't forget to get swag. It was very popular yesterday. I'm sure it'll be just as popular, if not more so, today, so don't miss out on that. We are really excited about Tom being here to tell us all his thoughts about all the things, not all the things, but bananas are going to happen today, so that'll be interesting.
We're definitely going to talk about bananas.
We're going to talk about bananas today. It'll be pretty great. We talked about a lot of things yesterday. What was one of your favorite things that we touched on yesterday?
Mostly team dynamics. Yeah, I can't emphasize enough how important it is to have really solid team dynamics.
That was a great one. I enjoyed that. If you didn't catch it, it'll be on our YouTube channel, and I'm sure we'll email out links later. And if you have any questions, too, of course, our staff is in the booth to talk to you. Tom, what in particular is exciting to you about sharing all these thoughts at BlackHat in particular and being able to have this forum?
Well, when you suggested this forum, I was pretty excited about just being able to unload some things that I think about and do it in a context, a presentation style context, and really being able to talk around a lot of the things that we do, because we spend so much time focused on really specific components.
Yes.
And it makes a lot of sense to be able to just give a little more color, right? A little more feeling around everything.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, the thing I love about this is that most of this, about 90% of what Tom is sharing with you today from the booth is original content. It's just his thoughts about some things. These aren't regurgitated presentations. Mm-hmm. So you guys are the lucky few. So I hope you enjoy. And Tom's going to talk to you some more. What are we talking about now?
I don't know. Oh, wait, network device management.
Network device management. All right, awesome. Well, Tom, take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Janae. All right. Network device management is a long-standing, tricky issue. And it's an issue that when we go in and we look at organizations that are doing it today, they're often doing it the same way that they were doing it a long time ago. When we come back and we look at a lot of the motivators and the impetus around modern automation, much of that modern automation has to do also with changing the underlying platforms that they automate. When configuration management and the DevOps movement was introduced, it was introduced at the same time as virtual machines and cloud computing started to become a real thing. And so it became easy for these new philosophies to mix with the new ways that we actually deploy the platforms that we're working on. When it comes to network management, it's been really interesting to see how things have evolved and, frankly, in some ways not evolved over the last 10, 20 years. Network devices 20 years ago were statically configured and managed devices that were keeping track of and managing, of course, the network, typically in a single or a half rack of servers. And today, when we boil it down, network devices are single, statically configured devices that are being used to manage a rack or a half rack of servers. In many respects, it hasn't changed a whole lot. Sure, we've introduced significantly more powerful network devices. Our network devices are more dynamic in how we manage them. We had a large shift, or an attempted shift, around dynamic network management. But when we sit down and we look at network devices today, so many of them are still just statically configured devices. And I talk to our teams and they don't see a big change. Instead of looking at network devices just as, again, static boxes, because the nature of them isn't changing in a dramatic way, how is it that we can start to rethink what that network device management really means? And so let me start by talking about how this is BlackHat, of course. And what the security implications of not having automated network device management mean, but also what those liabilities are. We can't look at solving a problem if we don't first accept the nature of the problem that we are trying to solve. This is something that is a really core philosophy to me personally, that if we are not able to look at someone and say, these are the challenges that we are facing, then we'll never be able to overcome them. And this is something that I think that we do far too often in the world today. So, network devices and security. Network devices have vulnerabilities that are coming out all the time. And those network device vulnerabilities have a very dangerous footprint. Oh, yeah, I mentioned this a little bit yesterday. But then we can measure the danger of a vulnerability based not only on how exploitable that vulnerability is, but how that vulnerability interacts with the rest of our infrastructure and the rest of our liabilities, and the predictability of what further devices can be exploited when that single door has been breached. And so what we run down to is the fact that this network device, coupled to what is a highly dynamic virtual and containerized infrastructure where resources are splayed all over the place, means that it's nearly impossible in a modern infrastructure to even know what the liabilities are associated with the network device. It's nearly impossible to look at that network device and say, if that device is compromised, then these are the video streams that we're going to lose access to. These are the databases that will be compromised. These are the computational resources that are going to be compromised. We just don't know. And that liability also rears its head when we come back and we look at being able to ask the following question of, if something goes wrong during the update of this network device, what services are going to be down? And so we end up with a dangerous double-edged sword. Now, very recently, with a new customer that we're working with, I was able to sit down and go over their network infrastructure. This was a very large customer managing a very large cloud, a public cloud, to be frank. And some of their network devices had not been updated against security issues for many years. And they were obviously very worried about it. This company had calculated that it would take a significant amount of time with their current processes, and that the decay of the security posture of those network devices would always outstrip their ability to repair them, which means that on paper, where we're often most optimistic, it became abundantly clear that they were not going to be able to ever get on top of securing their network devices. Now I say this, I give the example of public cloud. I've seen this in virtually every large-scale on-prem deployment that I've seen, with some very, very rare exceptions. Telcos, financial institutions, etc. And so what it boils down to is this understanding of the inability to be able to hit a specific cadence of recovery that could ever lead to any semblance of security. Not being able to achieve that level of cadence changed the dynamic of these problems. Because all of a sudden, the dynamic of these problems wasn't asking the question, how should we go about doing it? It was asking the question of, clearly we have to fundamentally rethink how we are managing these devices in a completely holistic way. So we sit down with them and we start to ask questions about, if we're going to hit an economic cadence, what are some of those high-level requirements that are even necessary? it became very clear that just the ability to reach out to a network device and check it out and update it needed to, in and of itself, achieve a specific level of performance. They needed to be able to update large numbers of network devices very quickly. And other network automation tools that were out there kept coming back with the same problems. Either those network automation devices would take far too much time to ever be able to keep up with their cadence, or even if they could very easily see that they wouldn't be able to keep up long term, and that they would not be able to grow with the deployment. Another issue that they ran into was the ability to isolate specific devices and batch execute across them. It goes back to that liability of the application. We need to be so careful when we're updating network devices because of the vast array of liabilities that surround them. And so they needed a very targeted ability to simultaneously update highly specific groups of devices, and again, be able to keep up on their configuration. And this is where the next thing came in that I thought was very interesting, is how quickly we discovered this very strong interest in needing to not only update the firmware from a security perspective, but this interest to still do dynamic network management. Dynamic network management, or virtual networks, it's been a dream for years. And when it came out originally, around 2012 to 2014, there was a lot of excitement behind the concept of being able to have a completely dynamically configured network. But we quickly discovered that having these dynamically configured networks was an incredibly complicated task. Being able to dynamically configure how a network is behaving can be extremely difficult. And when we begin it from a theoretical perspective, rather than trying to solve highly specific tasks, it proved to be a very difficult prospect. And so I've been really excited as we at SaltStack have been working on our network management stack. SaltStack is known for its performance. We love to tell the stories of how SaltStack is used to patch a vulnerability across tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of systems in mere minutes, let alone hours. And we have that same capability when it comes to network devices. One of our customers has over 90,000 network devices being actively managed by Salt. And we're able to see visually the ability to ask questions of those devices and apply changes to all of them in mere seconds, which again is an incredibly exciting thing to watch and see. And these customers have come back and repeatedly stated that the use of SaltStack's automation platform to update these network devices not only allows them to get ahead of the economic cadence issue that I'm talking about, but it allows them to maintain a security posture on an ongoing basis. And finally, it allows them to execute dynamic updates to the network as well. When we look at updating a network dynamically, we have to ask questions like, why on earth do we want to do this? What are the goals that we're trying to achieve by dynamically updating network settings? Many of the goals are security related. Wouldn't it be nice if the network layer itself would be able to defend against DDoS attacks? Wouldn't it be nice if we could automatically detect nefarious traffic and stop it at the network layer? This actually makes a lot of sense, because what we end up with in an infrastructure, especially today, is that dynamic, ever-changing microservice cloud infrastructure, where it's so difficult to be able to build these defensive measures into the individual microservice components. Sure, if we look back and we look at something like an Apache web server and the old days of the last stack, it made sense. Let's build these defenses directly into the web server. But it just doesn't make sense in the same way anymore. The way we present information over our networks has changed dramatically in the era of containerization and microservices. And so being able to manage the switching makes more sense. And so it's been really exciting as we've worked with some of our customers to also provide things like dynamic denial of service attack defenses through our event-driven systems. The event-driven systems inside of Salt are not simply so that we can create event-driven workflows, but more so, the event-driven systems inside of Salt are made so that we can respond to real events that are happening inside of the infrastructure. We can respond to those events as they occur and as they are driven. Now, the last thing I want to emphasize in this brief talk here is going right back to team dynamics. When we're managing these devices, we need to figure out how to bring the network people and the security people and the operations people and the developers together. That can be done through a shared common experience. That can be done through being able to deliver a platform upon which they can cleanly communicate with each other. As always, BlackHat has been fantastic, although a lot different than usual. We look forward, and I personally very deeply hope that next year we will all be able to greet each other face to face safely again. All right, I'll see you at the top of the next hour. Until next time.